Hello and welcome to Richard Plays Games. My name is Richard and I play games. And welcome back to Planet Coaster, welcome back to Avalon Studios. If this is your first visit to Avalon Studios, then welcome. If you are a returning guest, then welcome back. I think it's pretty obvious what we're doing this week. It wasn't just hinted at. I did say at the end of episode 4 that we were going to build a coaster, and that is what we're doing. 4 episodes of building Main Street and the entrance. I figured it was probably time to branch out a little bit because this game is not called Planet Main Street. So here we are building our coaster, and I am absolutely terrible at it. I found it really difficult. I know there are some amazing coaster builders out there on YouTube, Silverette being the obvious one that springs to mind. Very knowledgeable about the coasters in real life as well, which I'm absolutely not, because I'm just not a coaster rider, or I haven't been for a very long time. When I was a kid, I was absolutely terrified of coasters, and even now when I go on them, it's more because I'm kind of made to than probably want to. So I just don't really know that much about them, so I'm not sure how realistic this coaster even is. But I sort of thought, if we're going to make a coaster, we should at least know a little bit about the coaster that we are trying to make. So for those of you that know, this is quite obviously Rip Ride Rocket from Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida, but not quite. I looked it up who made Rip Ride Rocket. It was made by Mauer, which is a German roller coaster manufacturer that worked with Universal Creative to make it. Opened in 2009. I've never been on it, so this is not a build from memory. It's a build from YouTube video, and I mean you can. I've seen it. You can't miss it if you've ever been to Universal Studios. It's quite obvious as you walk in that there's a massive coaster there, but I've never been on it. So yeah, not a build from memory, but yeah, opened in 2009. But what we're using is the in-game coaster called Barguest. I'm probably massively destroying that pronunciation, but that's a in-game version of a Gerstlauer Eurofighter coaster. So not quite the same type of coaster. I did look at a few other builds of Rip Ride Rocket on the workshop just for research posterity. Used nobody else's stuff. I just wanted to have a look, see what people have made. Most people use the Torque in-game coaster, but I went for this one instead. This is it is a real life coaster, like the type. The Saw coaster being probably one of the more famous, at least UK versions of the coaster. But I mean, the end result is going to be a little bit different. We are going to ride the coaster at the end, obviously, so you guys can see what it looks at. That end that's currently on the right hand side of your screen, now the left, as I flipped around 180, that's going to be completely different by the time we get to ride it. I did a lot of work to that off camera, because as you can just see there, working through the G-forces or the testing, I was putting a lot of G-forces at that end of the coaster, and it just really wasn't particularly good. The other end that will be the same in the ride through, but I am going to go back and change later, is the other end. So both ends hopefully will change over time. Just starting to build the station now. This is me just building the covering for the station. Just while we're doing that, you may have noticed in parts of the recording other buildings that are sort of down that end of the park now. I did start building our next themed section, but it's not going to be there when we do the ride through. Those will show up in episode 6, but you can actually see them as we look up if you looked up the street there now. The reason I put them down is mostly just because I'm just trying to sort of gauge the area. I'm trying to be forward thinking with the layout of the park, because as I built the coaster, I realised I'd kind of boxed myself in an area that I had plan to build more, and I think we'll still build more. This is the area that would have been or was the studio. So before Avalon Studios was a theme park, this is the area that was the working studio. So this is where all the sound stages are, hence the other 2 rides that we have in the park, how they're buried in the sound stages, because this is where the studio sound stages were, and that's why there's 3 sound stages behind the station here. And just the other side of those sound stages is where I was going to put the start of our studio tram tour, because we're going to have a tram tour in the park. But I've kind of realised that I've really boxed myself in here, so I'm not sure yet if that's going to carry on. I did run the coaster open, or running, and let guests ride it, so I could kind of gauge guest flow in the area, and it was not good. The sort of entrance into the plaza area that we're going to start building soon, it became very congested, and by adding in another ride down here, I don't know if I'm going to overly congest it. And there is a reason why I can't expand the pathing anymore, which we'll get into in the episode where we move into episode 6 and start to build more of the next themed area. But before we get onto that, obviously we need to finish our coaster, so we're just working on the station here, and this is just sort of trying to box in and the sort of drive of the coaster underneath the station. I know we haven't done much realism stuff yet, but it is something I've been planning on, through, or trying to think about, at least forward thinking as we're building, what would be backstage. And I will build backstage areas, but we just haven't built much front stage area yet, so it felt kind of silly to build a backstage area now. There's no need yet. So there will be backstage areas, and I am constantly trying to sort of consider where those will be, and they will come, so that the realism factor, I'm definitely trying to consider it, and that's something I'm trying to consider in this build now, and you'll see a few things in the queue as I build it that sort of hopefully help maintain that sort of realistic park. I know the main street didn't have really much realism to it in terms of there's no it doesn't back onto like an area for deliveries, but I just kind of thought that there would be internal backstage areas, or maybe even like utilidors like they have at Magic Kingdom, the underground tunnels for people to move around. Maybe we could integrate that somehow into the park. Obviously I'm not going to build underground tunnels, but maybe put dot entrances around, just so that people can see where they are. Just working on the entrance now for the coaster, so the entrance into the queue. There is a new sign, and a sign again that I'm very happy with, very proud of. Still loving my signs. And I'm going to bring it in just a moment, and I'm going to realise that it's massive, and then I didn't really want to work on it anymore. I didn't want to redo it. I didn't have any context when I was making the signs. I was like, oh yeah, that looks about the right size, and then you can see now, bang, it's huge, and I was like, oh, oops. But I didn't want to restart, so I kind of do my best to make it a little bit smaller by just kind of cutting off some of the edges, using the angles of the letters here with the art shapes in a moment to make a more sort of realistic, not realistic, just a smaller condensed side rather than that mammoth thing we had before. Also, I think you just saw me put in the sort of queue wait time board again. I've used that before when we first did the queue for Clueless Clives, and that will be I've used those again. It's an online website which I'll link in the description below, along with any pieces that I use from the workshop that I haven't linked previously, because it's awesome, and you can just use it to make really good like wait time billboards for your any ride. And you don't I create the logos and then import them. You don't have to do that. You can just do it all with text. It still looks awesome. So these are our entrance signs as well. So we've got one for our entrance and one for our priority entrance, and then we're just going to sort of surround those with art shapes. Again, super happy with these. I think they give the sort of whole ride, I guess, like a theme, this sort of speed kind of theme. Ride Rocket is is music themed. You can choose the music as you go around, which is awesome. I do want there to be music on the coaster. I just haven't decided what the music will be yet, and it isn't exactly going to be like a music theme. It's just the name of the coaster is just Studio Speeder, and it's just a generic coaster, and rather than a theme, it has a color pattern. The lockers that you can see in there are a workshop piece, which I will post a link to, and we've just chucked an ATM in there just to make it that some guests will go in there from time to time, make it look like that area is actually in use, that the lockers are in use, that they're going in there to store their goods, because you would, in a real park, you would have lockers before you would go on a coaster like this, because you don't want stuff falling out your pocket, and we don't really have netting. If we really wanted to go realistic, we would build netting around the coaster, but we don't really have netting on Planet Coaster. And if I'm being honest, I haven't got time to be putting netting around all of the coaster. So lockers, that's our in-game answer to that little problem. Now it's all just about bringing the area together, which we're trying to do with these sort of like planter gardens areas. Still using these palms like we did in some earlier planters, which we actually ended up removing, but I still imagine that this park is in a hot place, so palms would be the likely sort of tree that we would have. The other thing I'm adding to the area, lots of benches, because whenever you're dealing with a ride like this, you're going to have people waiting for people to get off, or you would in real life. You'd have perhaps party members that wouldn't want to get on a coaster, i.e. me. So there would be lots of benches around for these people to wait for the other members of their group to ride the ride and then come back and meet them there. So we're just sort of adding lots of benches around, lots of seating. Again, more and really trying to use these rocks, and I don't think it ever looks anything more than just like I've just chucked a few rocks around it. I don't think it looks very good. I think I end up leaving it there, but I'll probably come back and work on that a little bit later, and just sort of again trying to integrate these sort of bushes and palms, and just give the area, it helps separate the area from the rest of the plaza that we're building. It helps separate it from the rest of that sort of front lot kind of area. This is what we do now, is to sort of start to integrate that and build it up to the ride. We start to add the colours of the ride a little bit into the pavement, so that the ride, that there's this sort of splotches of the orangey red and the black, so that you can sort of, it builds up to where the queue is. And here we have this is again another workshop piece, but one I love. Queue fans. If you were in these kind of hot countries, they do have these queue fans, and I've used one of the in-game water mist effect sort of pieces to make cooling fans for the guests that are standing in line, because this line is big, and you can't sort of, I guess in real life you'd have like, this would be more like overflow queuing than real queuing, but again can't do that, so we just put that through all of the line and just turn those misters on, so that people that are waiting in line are not getting overly hot and dehydrated while they're waiting, and then just chucking some normal fans without the misters into the covered queuing area, because they have shade, so they would just need the fans. Tried to add a music bit there, tried to add a speaker, but then I just wasn't really sure yet what the music would be, and the speaker was actually a lot bigger than I remembered or thought it would be, so we'll bring that back later, and we will add music to the area. There just isn't a soundtrack for it yet, but we'll make one. Just lighting up the queue now, just lighting the whole area. Lighting, it kind of helps, I think, bring the whole area together, like when it's lit and it looks awesome, it just makes the whole thing feel, I guess, a bit more real. Just doing a few more gardens here, just to make sure that this whole area is a bit more, or is complete. There's a few things that we haven't finished in true Richard Plays Games fashion. There's some things that I will finish probably off camera, just as we get into building more of the park as the episodes progress. Right, now we're sort of going to path the queue. I've used a lot more of these in-game pavement pieces than I really ever intended to. I find them hard to use because they clip through a lot, and that's why I'm sort of moving around with the colours here and end up not having a certain colour in a particular place, because if they're overlapping, then you get this kind of clip through effect and it looks a bit jank. So we just decided to not use the colours as much. I'm going to box in these stairs and just to finish off this area. As you notice, we've used the colours of the ride, so the black and the orange in lines over the queue. Again, just sort of, I guess, thematic integrity. Not that it's a theme, it's just a colour scheme, but it just sort of everything being the same, it just really gives the area a little bit more of a realistic feel. Because we're using a colour scheme, and I really like it. I think it looks really good. Just finishing off this little side area here, building a planter or a plant area, another flower bed here, just take up this space, and then we are good. I'm going to let the time lapse run. I'm going to let the time lapse finish. We're just going to do this planter in a little bit more lighting, and then we'll get into a real-time section and we will ride that coaster. Okay, and here we are in our park in real time. We are down by the queue for Clueless Clives, just because I really like this view now up this street where you can see the coaster at the other end. I just think it looks really good. It's really starting to feel like a lot more of a real fleshed out park. I always think it looks really good because you have the lift hill just there as well, so it sort of invites you to come over. Next week we'll be working on if we were to turn left here, but for now we are going to go along this path here, past the entrance for Dogenado, and into our little plaza area for the entrance of the Studio Speeder. I'm just going to back up a little bit because I just really like how this whole sort of area is coming together. A little bit of work to do over here just around the new restroom building that we've built. And a little bit of lighting to do, but we'll just walk into the plaza. You can see we've got the colours of the floor start to change as we move towards the coaster. We've got our lockers area over here. We've got some restrooms over here. All of these signs, I just really like them. As always, I'm really happy with my signs. Took me ages, but they just help make the park, I think. These are the billboards that we were talking about. So we've got our estimated wait time is currently 65 minutes, even though there's no one in the queue. This ride accepts priority pass. We've got our safety information. We've got our priority entrance if you have a priority pass on that side. Yeah, looks awesome. Our lockers area, just have a little look through here. These lockers are awesome. Like I said, from the workshop, they've got the little screen there where people can rent them and stow their bags and stuff. So yeah, looking really, really good. I am just going to pop onto nighttime, just so we can have a look around this area lit. The lighting of the signs is really good, lighting on the buildings. I'm going to work on lighting of the plants. As the train goes up the lift hill, you can see it lights up the lift hill, and then once it goes over the top of the over the edge, the lights turn off, ready for the next train to do the next thing. Right, let's go back into daytime and let's walk through our queue. So we've not got a priority, we'll just go through our normal queue and we'll walk this way and into our Mr. Fans. There's a bit more water coming out of them than I would like, but it really was pretty much the only option. Like there wasn't really anything else that sort of fit that kind of what I was looking for. So you're going to get soaked while you're waiting in line, but it's fine. You're in a hot place. We'll jump over there. We'll jump into the priority queue. We'll head up the stairs into the station building proper. Ignore the archer, he's just for scale. And then this is where we would get on our coaster. So let's ride it. What do you think? I think we've got a pretty good coaster. As someone that doesn't really ride roller coasters, I think it's a pretty good coaster. But let's finish, as we always do, with some nice looking shots. Thank you so much for playing along with me again this week. I do really appreciate it. If you have enjoyed the video, don't forget to click that like button, and also don't forget to subscribe to the channel to keep up with all future Avalon Studios videos. But until then, I will see you when I see you.